Good morning, children. Welcome to our social science class. And today we will be continuing with the history revision, chapter 5, creation of an empire. Okay, children. So today's topics are, we will be revising about Aurangzeb, who ruled from AD 1658 to AD 1707. Then second topic is chief events of Aurangzeb's reign. Now among the chief events, the first will be the revolts of Jats and Satnamis. Second revolt was the revolts of Sikhs. And Aurangzeb's relations with Rajputs. Aurangzeb's relation with Shivaji. And after the chief events of Aurangzeb's reign, we will be revising about Aurangzeb's in Deccan. That is from AD 1681 to AD 1707. Okay, children. And then the next topic would be last days of the empire. Okay. Fifth topic is rise of East India Company. So after Aurangzeb's reign, rise of East India Company we have to learn about. Okay. And finally the Akbarnama and Ain-e-Akbari. So children, these are the topics we are going to revise in chapter 5, history revision, creation of an empire. And here we are learning about the Mughal Empire. Okay, children. So children, I hope you all are fit and fine and you all are ready to study. So I'm going to share the screen with you now. So all of you all please pay attention and please follow up. So here we are with this topic, Aurangzeb, who ruled from AD 1658 to AD 1707. And in the previous turn, we had revised about War of Succession, that how did Aurangzeb become the emperor? What did he do? He imprisoned his father Shah Jahan at the Agra fort in AD 1658 and declared himself the emperor of India. And Shah Jahan died in AD 1666. Now all about Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb ruled for nearly 50 years. His rule extended over almost the entire subcontinent, from Kashmir in the north to River Kaveri in the south, and from Kabul in the west to Chittagong in the east. But he reversed Akbar's policy of religious toleration. Akbar was, children, a religious tolerant, but he reversed his religious policy. And what did he do? He reimposed jizya tax on the Hindus. Therefore, he had a difficult time. He spent the last days of his reign attempting to suppress one revolt after another. So he kept on fighting and fighting and fighting, and he was in conflict with so many people. Now that is what we are going to learn about chief events during Aurangzeb's reign. So the first one was the revolts of the Jats and Satnamis. In AD 1669, the Jats of Mathura revolted under the leadership of Gokula, the Zamindar of Tilpat. They were defeated but could not be crushed permanently. In AD 1672, the emperor had to march personally to crush a rebellion of another group of peasants called Satnamis. These uprisings, however, continued till the Jat leader Churaman established a separate Jat kingdom. Okay, children. Now the next revolt. The second chief event during Aurangzeb's reign was the revolt of Sikhs. Guru Tegh Bahadur, the ninth Guru of the Sikhs, opposed the policy of religious persecution. Okay, children. What did he do? He opposed the policy of religious persecution followed by Aurangzeb. In AD 1675, Guru Tegh Bahadur, along with 5 of his followers, was arrested and brought to Delhi. Then what happened? Guru Tegh Bahadur was ordered to embrace Islam, and on his refusal to give up his faith, the Guru was beheaded at a place called Chandni Chowk in Delhi. Next, what happened? Guru Tegh Bahadur's son, Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru, organized the Sikhs into a disciplined military sect called the Khalsa, and they continued their heroic struggle against the Mughals. There was a fierce battle at Anandpur Sahib in AD 1704. Guru Gobind Singh fought heroically. His 2 sons were bricked alive when they refused to embrace Islam. Now the next major event of Aurangzeb's reign is his relations with Rajputs. So children, Aurangzeb's relations with Rajputs were not very good. He had strained relationship. His relations with Rajput were never cordial, never healthy. He kept Raja Jaswant Singh of Marwar and Raja Jaswant Singh of Marwar, these were Rathor Rajputs, and Raja Jai Singh of Mewar, these were Sisodia Rajputs. So what did he do? He kept Raja Jaswant Singh of Marwar and Raja Jai Singh of Mewar away from the court as he was annoyed with them. He did not like these people. So after Raja Jaswant Singh's death, Aurangzeb did not allow his infant son Ajit Singh to inherit the throne. And then what did he do? He detained the infant in Delhi. And next, Durga Das Rathor, a brave Rajput, rescued Ajit Singh. And thereafter, Rajputs of Marwar and Mewar joined hands and fought against the Mughals for several years, and at the end Aurangzeb had to yield and accept Ajit Singh as the ruler. Okay children, and here in this map you can see this is the map of Aurangzeb's empire. See here, empire of Aurangzeb that time, and right from here you can see Jats here, Rajputs, he didn't have good relations with them, and all his empire was Kabul is here, Kandhar, Lahore, Panipat, Delhi, Agra. So this is how in this map it is shown his empire. Appropriate boundaries, here it is. Now we go further and we will learn about the next major event of Aurangzeb's reign, that is relations with Shivaji. What relations he had with Shivaji, what type? Now this is what we are going to learn about. That is, the Mughals had conflicts with the Marathas. Okay, children. And these Marathas had become a strong power under Shivaji. The latter started attacking the Mughal territories in the Deccan. So these Marathas, they started attacking the Mughal territories in the Deccan area. And then what did Aurangzeb did? Aurangzeb, what did he do? Aurangzeb sent Shaista Khan. Aurangzeb sent Shaista Khan with a powerful army to fight against him. Shaista Khan was wounded and his son got killed. Aurangzeb then sent another army under Raja Jai Singh to deal with Shivaji. Next, what happened? Raja Jai Singh persuaded Shivaji to visit the imperial court in AD 1666. Shivaji was then humiliated by Aurangzeb. He, along with his son Sambhaji, remained under house arrest for nearly 9 months. And then Shivaji managed to escape and he reached the Deccan. In AD 1674, Shivaji was crowned as the king. Shivaji's glorious rule was cut short by his death in AD 1680. He was not only a successful military leader but an able administrator as well. So, this was the relations of Aurangzeb with Shivaji. And now we come to the next topic. What we have is the Mughal Empire at a glance from Babur to Aurangzeb. This is the flow chart here given right from the beginning. You see, first who ruled Babur from 1526 to 30, then Humayun from 1530 to 40, and then from 1555 to 56. Sher Shah and his successors, they ruled from 1540 to 1555. How did this happen? Sher Shah defeated Humayun and captured the Mughal throne. His successors ruled till 1555. And then Humayun again captured the throne in 1555 and ruled till 1556. The next Mughal ruler was Akbar, who ruled from 1556 to 1605. Then came Jahangir from 1605 to 1627. After him, his son Shah Jahan from 1628 to 1658. And finally, Aurangzeb, about whom we are learning now from 1658 to 1707. So we are on to the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, and we will be revising about Aurangzeb in Deccan in AD 1681 to AD 1707. After the death of Shivaji, his son Sambhaji ascended the throne. Okay, children. And Aurangzeb reached the Deccan in 1681. He was determined to crush the Marathas, but his efforts did not bear the desired results. And next, what happened? Aurangzeb annexed Bijapur in 1686 and Golconda in AD 1687. Then next in AD 1689, Sambhaji was also defeated, captured and killed. But the Marathas continued to cause a lot of trouble. And from AD 1700 to AD 1707, Aurangzeb remained in the Deccan and he died in AD 1707. Where did he die? He died at Aurangabad in AD 1707 with very little success but great loss of wealth and prestige. His absence from the north created disorder and weakened the empire. So empire, all his successors were very weak because he died. Now we come to the next topic, that is the last days of empire. Last days of empire, we are going to learn about the successors of Aurangzeb were very weak and inefficient. They were not able to manage the empire. One such king was Muhammad Shah. He ruled from AD 1719 to AD 1748 and who kept himself surrounded by musicians and dancers. He therefore came to be known as Muhammad Shah Rangila, Muhammad Shah the Colorful. During his reign, Asaf Jahan created an independent kingdom at Hyderabad. And soon afterwards, the governors of Bengal and Awadh also declared their independence. They did not recognize the authority of the Mughal king. So these were the last days of the Mughal Empire. And then what happened next? Nadir Shah of Iran invaded India in AD 1739 and he killed innocent inhabitants of Delhi and returned home with immense treasures, including the famous Kohinoor diamond and peacock throne of Shah Jahan. Nadir Shah's invasion was a terrible blow to the Mughal Empire. From this blow, it never recovered. So here children, I am giving you some information about Nadir Shah's invasion. During that time, the invasion, which was very bad. What happened that time? He took away a lot of wealth from our country, including the famous Kohinoor diamond and peacock throne of Shah Jahan also. So the devastation of Delhi after Nadir Shah's invasion was described by a contemporary observer. So one of these people, these observers, one described the wealth looted from the Mughal treasury as follows: 60 lakhs of rupees and some 1,000 gold coins. According to the records, he has written that 60 lakhs of rupees and some 1,000 gold coins he took away from here, and nearly 1 crore worth of gold ware also he took away from India, and then nearly 50 crore worth of jewels, and most of them unrivaled in the world. And the above included the peacock throne also. So much of wealth he took away from our country when he invaded India in AD 1739. And this invasion was followed by a series of plundering raids by the Afghan ruler Ahmad Shah Abdali, who invaded North India 5 times between 1748 and 1761. Okay, children. And now we will revise about the next topic, that is rise of East India Company. Okay, children. So here the English had developed three major trading centers at Mumbai, Bombay, Kolkata, Calcutta, and Chennai, Madras. But the East India Company could not make much advance till the death of Aurangzeb in AD 1707. Okay, children. And the French had also formed the French East India Company in AD 1664. The English and the French were at war in India many times. So here I would mention about the East India Company, that East India Company was formed in 1600. Okay. And here the French East India Company was set up in AD 1664. And both the English East India Company and the French East India Company, they were at war in India many times. After the Battle of Plassey in AD 1757, the English became the leading power in India. The Great Uprising of 1857 resulted in the transfer of power from East India Company to the British Crown. Okay, children. The last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah was imprisoned and exiled to Rangoon, where he died in AD 1862. Okay, children, I repeat, the last Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah was imprisoned and exiled to Rangoon, where he died in AD 1862. Exile means he was forced to leave his country, expelled from his country for political reasons. Okay, children. Now we come to the next topic, that is the export trade. The Mughals maintained balance of power in Central Asia. For example, when the Turks tried to invade Iran, which was a Shia state, the Mughals extended support to it. And they knew that the prosperity of their country depended on trade. They made every effort to maintain trade relations with Central Asia, West Asia, and other countries. Now we come to the next topic, that is the Mughal court. Okay, children. The reign of Shah Jahan is considered to be the golden period of the Mughal rule in India. The emperor sat on the famous peacock throne. The courtiers and nobles had their seats fixed at the court. They showed great respect to the emperor. The business of administration was transacted in the court. The officers gave their reports and took instructions from the emperor. The emperor also met the common people at fixed hours at Diwan-e Aam. that is the public hall of the public, and heard their grievances. He used to listen to their problems and he used to give orders to his officers to sort out their problems. And when the emperor went on official tours, the courtiers also moved with him. So this was about the Mughal court. Okay, children. And now we come to the last topic, that is Akbarnama and Aine-Akbari. So all you know, children, Abul Fazl wrote Akbarnama. Now you must be surprised how we know so much about Akbar, because much of it we know from his court historian Abul Fazl, who wrote Akbarnama. This book tells a great deal about Akbar and his times. Akbarnama is in 3 volumes. The first volume deals with Akbar's ancestors from the days of Timur to those of Humayun. The second volume presents the events of Akbar's reign. The third volume, that is Aine-Akbari, gives information about Akbar's administration and the legal and revenue systems of the empire. And the third volume also gives a detailed account, that is Aine-Akbari gives a detailed account of the city and village administration, the duties assigned to police, that time they were known as kotwals, inspectors, and the measures taken to regulate prices and to prevent women from becoming sati, burning themselves against their will. So all this is written in Akbarnama and Aine-Akbari, which was written by Akbar's court historian Abul Fazl. So these are the sources of history. Okay, children. So by this we have completed this chapter 5, the creation of an empire. And now we will go through the summary of the chapter, and where you will be able to understand the whole chapter in short. Okay, children. So here the first point is, right from the beginning we revise this chapter. Babur was related to Timur on his father's side and Genghis Khan on his mother's side. Ibrahim Lodi, the last ruler of Delhi Sultanate, was inefficient. Babur invaded India in AD 1525 at the invitation of one of the governors of Ibrahim Lodi. Then in the Battle of Panipat, AD 1526, Ibrahim Lodi was defeated. At Kanwa, AD 1527, Rana Sanga was defeated. Followed, children, I repeat, in the Battle of Panipat in AD 1526, Ibrahim Lodi was defeated, and at Kanwa, AD 1527, Rana Sanga was defeated. By AD 1529, Bengal and Bihar became part of the Mughal Empire. Then Humayun ascended the throne in AD 1530. As a result of the hostile attitude of his brothers and a few other factors, Humayun was defeated by an Afghan chief, Sher Shah Suri, in 1540. Humayun fled and Suri dynasty ruled India between AD 1540 and AD 1555. Sher Shah Suri, though 67 years old, during a brief period of 5 years, conquered Malwa, Rajasthan and Sindh. Sher Shah Suri created an efficient administrative system and undertook many public welfare projects such as the construction of many good roads. In AD 1555, exiled Humayun re-established the Mughal rule in India. Next, what happened? Humayun's son Akbar ascended the throne in AD 1556 when he was just 13 years old. Bairam Khan, trusted friend of Akbar's father, was his tutor, means was his teacher. Akbar entered into matrimonial alliances with royal families of Jaipur and wanted a similar alliance with Mewar, but the Rana of Mewar refused. Akbar's rule was the most glorious period of the Mughal era. The reign of Shah Jahan is considered to be the golden period of the Mughal rule in India. Aurangzeb ascended the throne in AD 1658 after having defeated his brothers in the War of Succession. Dara was killed and Shuja fled. Aurangzeb remained busy with wars, first in the northwest and then in Deccan. Aurangzeb had to suppress revolts of Jats, Sikhs and Satnamis, and he also reversed Akbar's policy of religious toleration. Guru Tegh Bahadur was beheaded. The Mughals' conflict with the Rajputs continued even after Aurangzeb's death. Maratha became a strong power under Shivaji, and after the death of Shivaji, Aurangzeb defeated and killed Shivaji's son Sambhaji. During Aurangzeb's reign, the English and French trading companies became rivals in India. Akbarnama and Ain-e-Akbari give a detailed account of Akbar's administration and the legal and revenue systems of the Mughal Empire. Okay, children. So, here we have completed the revision of History Chapter 5, the creation of an empire. So, children, thank you for watching. See you in the next class. Till then, take care and stay safe and keep smiling.